Two men, a razor-thin Himalayan ridge, and a daring plan that pushed the limits of human endurance. Then they vanished into the heights, leaving only the mountains to keep their secrets.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
They set out with a hope that felt larger than their numbers, a small French team carrying an ambitious idea into the heart of the Himalaya. At the center of it all stood Roger Duplat, a man described by his president, M.J. Montel, as the soul of the expedition, a leader of invincible will. Their aim was simple in words, but immense in reality. They wanted to see if modern equipment and alpine technique could open new ways across the highest mountains. Their plan was to attempt the long traverse that linked the east and west summits of Nanda Devi, a 3-kilometer ridge, nowhere lower than 23,000 feet. Louis Payan later wrote that it was audacious and perhaps rash, an arete of rock and ice that allowed no retreat and demanded strength of body and mind at every step. The team included Louis Gevril, second in command, Alain Barbazat, Louis Dubost, Paul Gendre, Jean-Jacques Longpin, Louis Payan, and Gilbert Vignes. With them came the Sherpas, Tenzing as Derdar, Dawa Norbhu, Sarke, Danamgyal, Gyaljan, and Pansi. They reached Chamoli on the 27th of May after the usual transport troubles of Himalayan journeys, and 3 weeks later they stood at the old 1936 base camp. Their plan began with the ascent of Nanda Devi West by the southern spur. Then they would traverse the ridge to Nanda Devi East and descend the southeast spur to Longstaff's Kolela camps. 1, 2, and 3 rose in the familiar places used in 1936. 3 tents were carried to Longstaff's col for the meeting with Duplat and Vignes, the two chosen for the long traverse. By the 26th of June, the preparations were complete. The weather was perfect, although almost too warm. On the next day, Duplat and Vignes went up with 2 Sherpas and reached Camp 2. On 28th June, they passed Camp 3rd and placed their bivouac at Camp 4 above the slab pitch at about 23,700 feet. On 29th June, they sent down the Sherpas with a brief message. They expected to reach the summit by noon and planned to bivouac below the eastern summit, then sleep at Longstaff's col. They reported that Angdawa and Norbu were ill and asked that they be helped. They noted that they suffered severe headaches, but that all went well. It was the last clear word from them. The next day they moved up rapidly from their bivouac, unroped and without crampons, taking ground that felt easy to such climbers. They were seen from Camp 3 at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, still heading toward the summit. Mist closed around them soon after, and no one saw them again. On 30th June, Louis Gevril climbed to the empty bivouac and searched the long ridge, but the heights gave no answer. A snowstorm came that afternoon, then a clear morning followed. According to plan, the camp at Longstaff's col had been set up. On 2nd July, Louis Dubost and Tenzing followed the old route of Bujak and Klarner. They found only bits of rope and rusty pitons. A message reached them at Camp 2 from below asking for news. They continued their search, studying the ridge again and again through their glasses. On 6th July, utterly exhausted, they reached the summit. They had frost-bitten toes. Tenzing had done more than anyone could have asked on the climb. The wind was fierce at the top, strong enough to force them down a little before they could use their glasses. They saw no sign of their companions. They hoped that perhaps Duplat and Vignes had found a way to safety. They descended to meet Payan at Camp 2, reached Longstaff's col on the 8th of July, and then pushed on to base camp the same afternoon. By then, 9 days had passed since the two men vanished. No hope remained. Gevril believed that a cornice had broken and swept them away. He himself nearly lost his life trying to cross the Rishi in a last attempt to examine the north face. The torrents were in full flood, and the camp could no longer remain. He was saved only by the brave efforts of the Sherpas and the coolies. Thus, the story ended, carried away like so many others in those high and silent places